Let's have a barn raising. And then we'll
burn one down. Yeah.
Burn one down and then raise it again. And then
Exactly.
Be the cycle. Hello and welcome to the QUACKCAST. This is QUACKCAST number 493. I'm Ozone Ocean, and with me is Baines, Tarts, and Pitt. Hi.
Hello.
Hello, the anti-Pitt.
Does that make me a hole or like a hill then? If I'm like an anti-Pitt.
You're a mountain.
I'm a mountain.
So we're all going to talk about the idea of well, Baines did a news post the other day, didn't you, Baines, about XPs and disappointment and all this other stuff. What did you title it? Fandoms, XPs, disappointment, and hope. So your thing was there about like doing adaptions of superheroes or established characters and how people who want to do something different with them can, disappoint fans and stuff because often they take things in another direction. And if they had just done their own versions of their own characters to explore these ideas that they want to have a look at, sometimes they would have handled it better. So,
yeah, like there's a lot of in certain areas, outrage, some dissatisfaction with fans. So I was thinking about that, how it's kind of sort of iconic characters, certain ones at least. Some seem to have more flexibility for some reason. But certain brands, certain iconic characters and worlds have been changed in the wrong ways in a lot of fans' way of thinking. And like taking Superman, for example, and twisting him into something very different from what the character's always been is one thing, but having a Superman type, like in the Boys series, is very different. Like, to my mind, you can have a Superman type and kind of do anything you want.
You can indeed. Well, we'll talk about that as soon as we've covered our regular spots. So, I'm going to talk about the feature now. The feature was Gumshoe. Hello, I'm Ozone Ocean, and my feature for the week was Gumshoe. Raymond is a hard-boiled, hard-bitten, old-style private dick. He's headstrong and goes after leads like a bloodhound. Thankfully, his secretary has a calmer head on her shoulders and is there to back him up when he gets into trouble. The problem is that the leads he's following might not be of this world. Something dark, evil, and ghostly stirring in the world. Gumshoe is a cool, groovy comic. It's in black and white, many tones of grey and pink, but more importantly, it's animated. The pages are all made up of animated GIFs, so it has a really interesting and unusual look to it. You have to pause and look at the pages for a while to make sure you don't miss anything. Occasionally you have to do that to read the text because it disappears too fast, but not often. The comic style is supernatural, noir detective. So read Gumshoe by Pencils, and it's rated T. Read it. And that was Gumshoe. Okay, so I've got the featured music. Gummelus has given me the featured music for today as well. Quite late, but better late than never. Here it is. It is Mousetrap. Bass leads the way, stomping through and leading this downbeat rock sound. Another bass guitar burrs in to take the mantle of the melody, and keyboards do their thing with a fun, driving sound. Even the drums try and take over the rhythm, but no one can usurp the mighty bass. It's a clash of the bass. So take it away, Gunwallace, with Mousetrap. And that was the theme to Mousetrap, which is an adult-rated comic. So yeah, check it out, but with caution, because you might not be the person who wants to see adult-rated work. Although I had a quick look at Mousetrap. I've had a look at Mousetrap a few times, and I haven't really come across the adult stuff. But oh well, it's rated that way, so well.
Oh.
Anyway,
What kind of shenanigans do those mice get up to? You have to find out.
exactly. Dirty
They
mice.
get up into the
Who did whom? Wow.
Exactly.
I'm a terrible person.
You are, Tance, you are.
great, psychopathic, tormented, disgusting,
Did you say fermented?
Fermented.
fermented.
Well, yes, you tend to drink enough, so perhaps you are. All right, so IPs, characters, formats that have changed and become things that fans don't like because authors and production houses and whatever like to change things up and do their own things to them. Okay, is it always a good thing or is it always a bad thing? I don't know. In our Patreon video, we talked a bit about Batman and the changes he's had over the years. And Baines, you in your news post mentioned The Boys, which is an alternative take on the Justice League.
Yeah, kind of. They're actually the antagonists. I'll just do it quickly. The Boys are sort of like an informal group of like people who have the who want to take down these super tough superheroes who are backed and work for this corporation. So they're like sort of high-level politicians, sorta, meet celebrities, meet superheroes, and they're sort of the upper echelon of the world in every way. You know, super powerful. And most of them are loosely based on Justice League, Superman, Batman, Wonder Woman, Aquaman, The Flash, and so on. So the Boys for various reasons, want to take them down. So that's like the heroes are massive underdogs.
Yes, with no superpowers at all.
Right, exactly. And the team, the superheroes, are to one level or another like dysfunctional, sociopathic, demented, and sort of
Nasty,
they have so much
people.
power, not just superpowers, but power because of their station.
Yeah, social power and all this kind of stuff.
Yeah,
Civil, social, yeah,
all of that stuff. So it's fascinating, and there are certain things that I know some people really hate the Boys. I saw the comments on the news posts, and I think Kawhi did a news post about the Boys some time ago. And I saw some comments, I think, then, too, that were like, this is terrible, it sucks. And there's sort of the idea that it's, not good for the genre, or it's like a misusing of the genre, that kind of thing. There might be other problems that people have.
It's interesting, isn't it?
Yeah. So, to me, though, this is the way, if you want to do an alternate take or a twisted take on iconic characters, to me, this is the way to do it. You create XPs. It's a Superman.
Misusing a genre sounds like gatekeeping to me. I'm not thrilled with that. That sounds really stupid.
Yeah, I don't agree with that either. So, a genre sort of it's kind of fluid.
Yeah, well, it's Warren Ellis. I think he's the author. He hates superheroes. He hates the idea of them. At least he did when he created that. But he didn't go and mess up Superman or
right.
Become the writer on a mainstream comic and do this to it and, turn Superman into Homelander. He didn't do that. He created his own character to do it with, which I think is, like you say, it's a good idea to do that. So, you can be pissed off at what he did to superheroes, but he didn't do that to your favourite superhero. He created his own one especially to do that too.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and maybe, it all lies in what your intention is with the interpretation. Like, as you were just saying, these were concepts he wanted to use in the superhero genre, right? So hence it was good for him to make his own superheroes and stuff. But when you take something like, I'll just mention it briefly, we won't get into it again here, but I thought you brought up a very good example with Frank Miller's Batman, in a way that the hero was kind of reimagined. And that was fitting for that because the reinterpretation lied in the superhero itself. It wasn't just taking a concept and superimposing it onto any superhero and just hoping that it works and trying to use that superhero's popularity to make your idea more popular. You kind of see what I'm saying. Like it's, yes, thank you.
Exactly.
Sometimes I don't know if I sound like I'm gibbering.
No, I think that's exactly it. Yeah, that cuts to it. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, so there's good ways of doing this and bad ways. Another example of someone doing it well was Watchmen, which is another alternative take on superheroes, and it's really examining them in re-examining them and looking at them in a different way. But they created their own superheroes especially for that. So they weren't taking established characters; they were taking alternative versions of real superheroes. The Owl is sort of like Batman, and there's all those characters that are sort of alternative takes on real superheroes.
And wasn't like what was that movie Unbreakable?
Yeah, Unbreakable. Bruce Willis and Samuel L. Jackson.
Exactly.
There's a couple more of those, isn't there? Yeah, that's a very alternative take on superheroes because they're not really.
Yeah, but imagine if they put Superman being unbreakable in that particular context. People, I don't think people would like it.
Right.
Yeah. So, and as I think Maine said before we started, we don't have to just talk about superheroes, but they are good examples of loved characters and loved genres and people wanting to take it in their own direction and doing it in certain ways. Like Tance, you mentioned Thundercats. So there's the original version of Thundercats, which people love. That's the cartoon from the 80s, and there's been, some things done with it. I think maybe there was a comic, and am I wrong? I think there was maybe an anime version of the Thundercats that was done.
There was a version, I think, around 2012 or 2013. Well, around there anyway, where they made this sort of anime version of Thundercats, and it was actually pretty good. And that's actually a good thing that you mentioned it, because they changed certain elements from the original, like they changed a little bit, they changed the age of Lionel, some relationships were a little bit tweaked, the issues that were being explored were tweaked. However, it was an excellent show and people liked it a lot. When it was cancelled for, I think, either a second or a third season, I think it was a third season, people were disappointed. And then last year, we got Thundercats Roar, which is an abomination from hell. That is designed to especially get under the skin of even people that casually watched Thundercats as kids.
Wow.
I have never seen an adaptation or a reincarnation or a rethinking of an IP that goes so strategically against its own self, like it's as if the person was commissioned to tear down this particular IP. Do everything possible to make it the ugliest, stupidest, most unfunny, and most pointless thing ever to come out.
Wow, that's harsh.
Yeah.
But you've seen it though, haven't you? You've actually watched it, so you're not just basing this off, YouTube video clips or whatever.
Oh no! I had the unfortunate opportunity to watch a bit of it. I couldn't finish. It was really that terrible.
Wow.
Like I actually even the intro was extremely painful. But
so what were the things? So what were the things that made it unbearable?
Okay, so where do I begin? So, first of all, the design of the characters. If you remember, Thundercats was a very angular, sort of semi-realistic G.I. Joe-ish style design as the original. And then the anime was, again, a very grounded, down-to-earth anime that had basically... it reminded me a lot of the mecha anime, just without the mecha. The style was a lot very much like that, which fit the general setting and the premise. It was okay. This thing is like you had small bubbles that, or like, do you know those balloons that are in very loose shapes of animals?
Yes.
That's how they look like. And they even have a shiny thing on their coloring that makes them look as if they are made of rubber and they are just inflated. And
to like in the cartoon realm.
What?
So like far too much in the cartoony realm.
Extremely far too much. Like it's more cartoony than what's the one with the gems?
Steven Universe.
Oh, Steven Universe.
Yes, it's more cartoony than Steven Universe. So, to give you an idea.
That's nasty. Yeah. Go on, sorry.
Oh no, please go on.
I was going to say, I remember looking at interviews with the people who were making it, and for some reason, all a bunch of young dickheads. They were sort of bros and very bro-ish kind of group of people, all in their 20s and stuff, and they had no connection with the original Thundercats, and they were just doing it in the Steven Universe style because that's what they like doing, and you think, well, cool.
But it's not in the Steven Universe style. If it was in the Steven Universe style, at least it would have some kind of style.
Well,
it would have some kind of consistency to it. It's very inconsistent. It's almost like a semi-surreal fever dream. At least that's what it reminded me. And that's just the style, the artistic style. Then you have caricatures of characters. You had, like, Lionel is the most stupid and most, it's like a dumbed down version of Steven from Steven Universe. And he is basically there just to be a punchline for everybody else. But all the others are as well are pretty much punchlines. They are walking punchlines, and there is no real plot to the episode. At least the one that I watched, I think it was the first one. There was no real plot per se. They were just series of little comedy gags, and that was it. So, yeah.
And you know, it's interesting that you put it that way. Because, yeah, that doesn't sound, I haven't watched any of it, but that really doesn't sound appetizing at all to me when I think of the Thundercats. You know, if I'm going to tune into something that's called the Thundercats, I'm tuning into it for a different reason. It's something I'd like to take a little bit seriously, you know. If I want to watch a full-on cartoon with gags and stuff like that, I'm going to tune into something else. And they totally could have done that by, once again, creating their own characters and stuff. However, the subject of format comes up because I'm kind of comparing, like if I had to tune into that on the TV or something, or, you know, as its own series on Netflix or something like that, I'd get more angry at it than if it was just, say, a series of shorts somebody made and put on YouTube. Then I wouldn't get angry at it, you know, just like, well, that's just somebody having fun. So it's interesting. I think the idea of the platform that you use, because it's putting it on like Netflix or something like that makes it feel so much more legit, like so much more official, I guess, and legitimate. And I don't know. As a fan of things, I hate laying that much claim over something I love to be like, well, if it sucks, it shouldn't be, you know, blasted. But at the same time, I can't help it. Like, I don't want that to be the representation of this thing that I love. You know, I could turn it off and forget that it exists, and then I'm no worse for wear. But it's the idea that it's still out there, and it's like, you know, maybe we could have gotten something better. Maybe this effort could have been put into something with love and care for this thing that I care about, you know. And I think that's where people get the most hurt about, you know, when people fuck up on recreating something important to their fandom.
Yes, and that's that.
Yeah,
you
for sure.
put it perfectly. And it's also the idea that the younger generation is going to be introduced to Thundercats through this thing. I don't even have an adjective for it right now. And it really hurts a little bit inside because, and I, to be honest, I was a big Thundercats fan. I really liked Thundercats. I even had like some merch and from Thundercats growing up, such as we got in Greece. And I remember role playing them with other kids in the neighborhood and stuff. And then to be slapped, because it felt like a slap. I was like, oh, okay, we have a new one. I'm going to go see what it is. And it's like a big flip the bird to everyone that has ever liked it. And I think that this is something that you shouldn't do to any fandom, even the ones that you hate. Like there are some that I really not hate, but I don't like them. But if I was brought on to do something with them and I, for some reason, kept the position, I would make sure to respect it and give the fans something that at least they would recognize as being representative of what they remember. So,
oh yeah.
I mean, it's that opposite take on things, like you mentioned earlier, that like it seems like they're purposely slapping fans of the older version in the face and purposely like undermining what it was. I mean, this is kind of when it's a problem, you know. You see it in Star Wars, you see it in Star Trek.
Mhm.
Like they've been taken down the same way, and
Yeah.
I,
And
I
in
yeah.
Shira as well. But less, like, you know what? I became less angry at the new Shira thing after I saw Thundercats. I was like, okay, now I know there's more out of
Yeah.
it.
Yeah, you know it could have been way worse.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
I'm
It's like,
trying not
hey,
to rag on She-Ra as much as I used to because I know I haven't seen past season 1, and I think my impression of the first few episodes and just how disappointed I was with them really colored my outlook for the rest of the show. And there, I mean, I'm sure there were some very captivating character beats and stuff like that, but I still and I don't see other people getting upset about it. Maybe it's just a pit face thing, but I just still I'm so angry, not angry, but just put off by the way they rushed how she turned and everything. I still think that it should have been a season long transformation. But anyway, but that's far less demeaning than what they, how they treated her than compared to what it sounds like they did in this Thundercats remake. It's She-Ra at least still gets to keep like dignity and stuff like that. Be a serious character and as has been my understanding of it, the characters around her are like, interesting and stuff, and that's cool. I think that's really cool if that's the case. So maybe that's one way that it's done somewhat correctly, and I mean more tolerably. I still wonder if they could take that idea and maybe have applied it to something else and taking those cool characters and really just made them their own thing.
yeah.
But
Especially considering that they had the 2012 He-Man and it was super, like, it was better than the original.
oh, was it?
Oh yeah, I recommend it. And they were going to get another season and Shira would be introduced. And there are the prototype sketches for Shira for that particular version, and she is awesome there. And then they just cancelled it. And then we got the new Shira, which there is a animosity about the new Shira. There is a lot of polarization, but I think that happened a lot more because the PR about the new Shira was very hostile to the old one,
Mm.
and it already predispositioned the existing fans, negatively towards it. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, then
Which is-
Thundercats all came out, and everybody was like, let's not complain all that much.
Always get worse. Yeah.
With nostalgia goggles on, I mean, I don't mind at all some of these older shows being remade because they weren't perfect back in the day. They got very formulaic, and I think now, like, that's one of the things I do applaud about the new She-Ra is it seems like maybe it's not so formulaic, that maybe there's a bit of progression and stuff like that, but and I like the idea of being able to push characters a little bit more. But then again, that's where you have to get to that territory where you have to be careful. Like, what are you representing? Are you just taking a concept and slapping it onto this title and just packaging it like that? Or are you integrating it with the characters? Are you treating the characters more like a thesis? If you do that, I think it'll be better because you're into it. But if you're just superimposing a concept, then that's everybody's going to see how flimsy it is. Like, to bring up something, one interesting case where it really worked well was, and this is a movie, of course. It's not a show or a comic book, but The Shining comes to mind. And granted, I never read the books, so I can't say from that perspective. But speaking from the reception of The Shining, at least nowadays, everybody lauds it as a classic horror movie, and it's amazing, and it is 100%. But Stephen King hated it, and he hated it for part of the reason why it works, and that's because it's a cruel movie. But that works for the movie because it's not like Stanley Kubrick was like, I'm just going to be mean, and that's it. It's woven all throughout that movie. You see the way, you feel the way that Jack Torrance starts to turn against his family, and it's absolutely it's terrifying, and you feel how much danger. I forget what his name is. The kid is, and his mom, Shelley Duvall's character. But how the family is and stuff, and you really feel how all that cruelty is starting to seep in, and how the danger is starting to seep in. So it works because even if that cruelty wasn't the original tension in the book, in the movie, it's woven throughout it so well that it has become like a thesis,
Exactly.
Yeah.
And to go a little bit further, it's like when you interpret, for example, a Shakespearean play, there are so many different interpretations, and they are very unique because they do different things with it. Like, I remember, compare, for example, Zeffirelli's Romeo and Juliet to Romeo and Juliet with DiCaprio and Claire Danes. I don't remember who made it.
Baz Luhrmann.
Romeo plus Juliet.
Yes. The thing is, these are two completely different animals. Like you see these two movies for different purposes, although it is the exact same play. So where's the difference there? The difference is in the artistic focus and what the creator is looking to bring out from the characters. So, like Romeo in Zeffirelli is a completely different guy from Romeo in Romeo plus Juliet, at least in my opinion. Although he says the same words, they don't really even change. Like, they don't change at all the play. The words in the play are not changed, but they come across as completely different people, and that is because they are explored differently. Although the respect towards Shakespeare's creation is there and is present, and you just see that they have taken it and gone somewhere with it without bending it out of shape and making it basically unrecognizable. And that's, I think, that is the thing. If you make it unrecognizable, then you are doing it wrong.
Yeah.
That's my opinion.
Yeah.
I was just thinking, I watched the female version of the Ghostbusters the other day, where they're doing, instead of doing a sequel to the Ghostbusters, they decided to go in a different way and do a female just adaptation, and it would have been a good film if they had done an adaptation and turned it into, just the straight female version of the Ghostbusters, but it was instead written as a children's film, and that is really where it messed up, because they did a disservice to all they were very good actors in the film, Kristen Wiig and all this, they're fantastic, but with that dialogue and the jokes and everything, it's just aimed at really young kids, and that was just not what Ghostbusters is about. So I think that's why it really disappointed a whole lot of people, and I think people mistook it as being feminist, it's sexist and all this, and it got caught up in that, and that's the level stuff that people throw at it, but it really wasn't why it was so bad. That had nothing to do with it. They put in great performances. It was because the writing and the jokes were just so inane and like, oh my god, it was really aimed at like 12 and 11-year-olds, which you shouldn't do that with that IP.
Mm-hmm. That's absolutely, and I also think that the PR again messed up a lot on that, in the sense that they went really heavy-handed and ham-fisted on the whole girl power thing, and in conjunction with going with all the previous ones were inferior because they had I don't know.
Yeah.
So when I am struggling to wrap my mind around this strategy. Like, why would you attack the IP which you are seeking to capitalize on?
Yeah.
If it was so terrible, why does it still have a fandom? Because you are redoing it because it has a fandom already made and waiting for you. So if it was so terrible, but it has kept this fandom for 30, 40 years, or I don't know how much, depending, and you attack the original versions of the IP, what do you think is going to happen?
Yeah, that was...
Yeah. Well said. That's it.
It was silly of them to do that, but it was quite funny. I've been rewatching Always Sunny in Philadelphia, which, you know, I love this show. I talk about it all the time. I bore you guys with it. But they do this. In the series, they did this particular episode called the Wayne Boggs Challenge, something like that. So the idea was all the characters, they're going to get on this aeroplane, fly across to the other side of the country to see this baseball match, and they have to beat the record that Wayne Boggs set. And Wayne Boggs was meant to be this baseball player, and he drank so many beers, I don't know, like 16 beers or something like that, and then he got to the Wrigley Field and played a great game and everything like that. And it was this amazing event in the characters' minds, and they wanted to like beat him. So the whole challenge was all the characters would see if they could like beat him as many beers that he drank, and the last one standing, you know, got to go on the field and see if they can hit a baseball. So that was their challenge. In the last season, I think not the last season, but in a later season, season 13, the title of the episode is Wayne Boggs Reboot. So in this version, Dee, you know, the chief female character of the group, says, "Okay, look, I want to do a reboot of the Wayne Boggs thing, just with women." And so it's like they're deliberately doing a takeoff of the Ghostbusters thing, but in their own kind of secret way. And so she's on the airplane saying, "Look, this is a women-only flight. I just want women doing this." And one of the other characters saying, "Why do we have to do a reboot of the thing the guys did? Why can't we just do our own thing? You know, why do we have to do this?" And she's saying, "No, because, you know, this is a female-centered story and it's got to be, you know, in this way." And so the whole thing is based around that. And it was like a really clever takeoff of, you know, what you're saying, you know, the criticism of Ghostbusters and like the criticism of fans, and, you know, like supporting the idea, and all the characters are like justifying it and also criticizing each other and saying, "Oh, when women do things are stupid. I can't stand stories with women in them." You know, one of the female characters doing that, and she hears that there's a female pilot, and immediately she tries to open the emergency door. "Oh no, a female pilot! Oh no, what a terrible!"
That there is this feeling that you need to somehow talk down whatever came before you in order to talk up what you are actually trying to sell. Like, a very insecure person will try to make everyone else look inferior to them so that they feel that they are the one shining among their particular group.
Yeah, it's my chief
And
tactic.
yeah. Where on it was. That's also true. But the thing is that you're shooting yourself in the foot when you do that in the first place, and then the IP just collapses. Like, this is what happened with Star Wars a lot. And we might we might not get an actual proper Star Wars movie for a while because everything became, sorry, pardon the language, such a clutterbuck around. The problem was the female Jedi and let the past die and yeah, okay. So the general thing is you can develop and you can evolve something into different situations. Like I will give an example on that. There was this series, like a criminal of the day series called The Closer, where it was very popular for the main character, who was this Southern Belle type of detective who was extremely good at closing cases, but she also was very quirky and very opinionated, and she had to win over her squad, and so on and so forth. So after, like, I don't know, 6 seasons or something like that, the actress decided to move on. So they had to finish the series because it was all on her shoulders. So what they did was that they did finish that particular series, but then they immediately started the next one, which is called Major Crimes. So Major Crimes, it features what happened when the particular detective left and a new one comes in to fill in the position. And she is not the same type of character. She's a completely different kind of weird character that the squad again has to get used to. And they also have bad blood because they have chosen a specific pre-existing peripheral character to make the main one. What I'm trying to say is that they evolved the cast and they have basically the same IP, but now it has developed, and both IPs are very successful and part of the same universe.
Yeah. Well, you can do things a good way and a bad way. I was thinking of another good example of that is famously there was the 1990s fantasy series Hercules: The Legendary Journeys, which was
with Kevin Sorbo.
Yeah, quite popular. And then they, for whatever reason, they did a female version that had this new character, totally new invented character, Xena, and that became even more popular than Hercules. And that is a new character. So instead of just going, we'll do a female version of Hercules, they didn't at all. They created this totally new character. You know, like, it was exactly the same format, but a totally new character. And she not only she worked way better than Hercules, and has actually gone and become a pop culture icon in her own right, way beyond the TV show.
Exactly. It's like Lara Croft, for example. She's not female Indiana Jones. They do the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
But, you know, she had triangles. And and she could jump.
She had very impressive triangles, yes. Very large triangles.
And she became very popular.
Yeah, she
Super
did.
popular.
She did, yeah. So there is, if you want to take things in another direction, it's often good to to do your own thing and not just
Mhm.
parasite off something that's already there in like a Thundercats Raw kind of way.
Oh my god.
Like,
It's like that thing is painful. It oh my goodness. Anyway, but yeah, the thing is, for example, if instead of creating Lara Croft, they had created Indiana Jones, only now Indiana is a female name, and she is the one that is fighting Nazis and wearing a fedora hat, and she is so much better than Indiana Jones that we knew because she is a woman. And, yeah, that's a recipe for disaster.
well,
I think that
it could work, but you run into a lot more issues because not only are you you could be accused of disrespecting the original IP. The problem happens when how are you adapting it? Are you just making a sexy version of Indiana Jones if you're doing it that way? Is that how you're doing it? So that can be a problem. Like, say people have talked about, we want to do a female version of Doctor Who. No, not that. They already did that. They actually did that. No, a female version of James Bond. So yeah, they want to do a female version of James Bond, but that doesn't make sense in a lot of ways because the original character's has decades of stuff behind it. It's it's based in a book, and the whole idea of the character is a misogynist kind of sexually adventurous kind of character. If you're going to do a female version of that, are you going to make her like a nymphomaniac or something? Like, the version of...
it would be interesting if it was a misandrist instead, and if she was like a femme fatale in the sense of, and like always luring in the guys but never actually letting them, always going to the source and never drinking from it and stuff like that. I would watch that. But still,
you could do it. You could do a version that would work, but you'd have to be faithful to the character in that way. You couldn't just modernize it and say, "Oh, this is like a kick-ass, Gina Davis kind of character," and then it wouldn't be really the James or Jemima Bond or whatever. You'd be creating a new character.
that would become offensive to so many people in just those words.
But you could do something's female character if she was as promiscuous as James Bond. But if you took that, because that's going to hold, you could, I suppose, make what's the word I'm looking for? You could do some stuff like that because when women are promiscuous in movies, so many times it means something else than when men are promiscuous in movies. You could take that and use it as a tool for subversion and stuff if you were doing more with it rather than just like, look, she's sleeping with everybody and not making a intelligent punchline out of it. But yeah, I mean, you could probably do something with it. I mean, look at Austin Powers. He's a subversion of the whole James Bond thing, and he works well.
Yeah, but say that's a really good example. So
he's Austin Powers, though. Yeah, he's not 007.
But that's a good example.
No, but he's a takeoff. Yeah.
Since they wanted to do a spoofy version of James Bond, they didn't use James Bond to do it. They created a new character, which was Austin Powers. But originally, there had been, because the people who filmed James Bond didn't have the rights to the first book, Casino Royale. That was owned by someone else, and those people who owned it did a spoofy version of James Bond with James Bond as the main character, and it's terrible. That's a terrible film, but it is a proper. The character is James Bond in it in the original Casino Royale, and it is terrible. So that is a good example of people taking an original character, doing it their own way, and doing it horribly. And
the thing is that the point I wanted to make wasn't that you cannot gender bend every single iconic character that is there and do it successfully. Absolutely. The thing is that the way that you frame it and the way that you write it, and if you want it to exist in the pre-existing universe, for example, you have to make it so that it doesn't undermine the original OP, the original player, let's say. So
yeah, I think that's what we've all pretty much been saying. Like, I think we're all pretty much in agreement here. You know,
I just want to make it extremely clear because there is it's so easy to be misconstrued lately.
yeah, it is. But say, James Bond, just to go more into that, there have been different takes on that character. I mean, not necessarily gender bending, but we've got, different actors in the role. Sean Connery's version that people really loved. People hated it back in the day because they didn't think that was the right kind of portrayal of the character. Because it's meant to be a suave playboy, and Sean Connery was a big bruiser boxer. So he didn't really exemplify the idea of the character that people had in their heads from reading the books. So that was a slight reinvention, and he did clean up his act a bit. And then there's Roger Moore playing the character, who was more of the suave playboy, but didn't follow in the version that Sean Connery had created for the character. So the movies became a bit more campy and a bit less masculine than what people had gotten used to with Sean Connery, and they're looked at as being, a bit. People don't really like those versions of the James Bond character now. So, the character has been reinvented as it's been going along. So, I mean, like we're saying, if you did a female version, you would have to stay true to the IP, as you're saying. But there has been different versions of it.
Staying true to the IP means just that the interpretation that you would make of a female James Bond would need to be following in the same trajectory of, like in the same framework, let's say. Because just like Pete said, she could be exactly like James Bond in that she beds all the guys. Or, if you want to go even further, that she beds all the guys and the women. She could be bi. And the reason for doing that could be very strategic or very specific, or it could just be her preference, and she is just a heartthrob for both genders.
She
And
could be
Marlena
lesbian.
Dietrich, if you will.
yeah,
Could be just straight out
So,
lesbian. That would work.
that too. It would be interesting. I mean, but the thing is, she would need to have this flavor of James Bond that people could relate to. Like, okay, yes, this is a female James Bond.
Although, as we're saying that, it would probably be better to create a whole new female character. Like,
I would go that way.
yeah, say, so if someone really wanted to do that, they could use, I mean, they wouldn't really have to create a whole new female character. They could use, remember, what was that film? Mr. and Mrs. Smith, I think, with Angelina Jolie and Brad Pitt, which it wasn't really a very good film, but she could be in a solo film being a superhero. She was, there's potential for that character, and that would be pretty cool. So you can expand upon things like that.
Speaking of, the one thing I one thing I didn't actually like was, and there are a lot of people that do like it, so I'm not just, mentioning something. It's controversial, is Maleficent and how the movies develop her character. And I do say develop in the sense that seeing the story through her point of view, we get different aspects and different background stories and different framings for who she was. And personally, I felt that this was disingenuous to her original concept, let's say. Because I actually liked the fact that she was a fairy that was very vain and very pissed off. And she did all this trouble just because she was not invited to the ball. There are people like that, that if you spite them, they do that.
Yeah, I think one of them's the president of the United States of America.
Like, why didn't she do like this whole world building that went into her character and the concept of her being with wings, and then I mean, okay, I can see the potential in it and stuff, but it's completely it basically gouges out the insides of the character, leaves the shell, and then refills it with something else. It's
very poetic, Terence. I like that.
It's like, you know what? It's like that meme where you get a hamburger, but it's cake. But you went in wanting to eat the damn hamburger, and it's cake.
Yes. God, those exist. I've seen them online. It's horrible. I can't imagine cutting into one of or biting into one of those things and having it cake instead of hamburger. Yeah.
Exactly. So if you do that to the audience and the audience doesn't like it, because some will be wowed. Oh, wow, it was cake after all. But there will be some people that will be pissed because they wanted to eat the hamburger and not the cake. So I guess in that case, you win some, you lose some. But if you want to do such a 180 on a character, just best, I think, would be to create a new one and just make sure that everyone understands that it is your take on this particular fairy tale. It's not that hard to do. It has been done a gazillion times. You don't need to take the official fairy tale that you created and just tear it apart.
Well, we're coming towards the end now. Should we just briefly touch on the reason why people use existing IP rather than new IP? There's various reasons, but one of the main ones is built-in fan base. It's got the recognition, and it means that whatever you do to the character, it's going to be there's a built-in audience for it, or it's going to be easy to promote because there's already awareness of it. So it's really a shortcut to getting a market. It's based on marketing. Yeah.
And Tans just typed more likely to be greenlit by execs. I was going to say the same thing. I heard an interview with Rob Zombie who said it was a lot easier to get funding to make a Halloween remake than it was to get his own thing greenlit, you know?
Well,
so, it's definitely that, and that's because of
this climate,
built-in fan base, and they think, okay, more likely to have an audience, make a profit, and then they turn around. I mean, Tans expressed it perfectly earlier in the cast. Like, then they turn around and undermine the very thing that they're trying to sell. It's it's very strange.
Because
very, very strange.
Maybe the writer would rather be doing their own thing.
Right.
The writing team would rather be doing their own characters. And the actor would rather be doing, their own role rather than reprising someone else's character. So they influence.
I would say, it comes from the writers, producers, almost always. I would say it's very rare. Maybe it happens, but very rare that like it's the actor's fault. But that's just a side note. They're
And I
not
do
really.
think,
Yeah.
and I do think sometimes it can also come from a sincere attempt to appreciate something. Like, oh, I grew up with this thing, this concept, this thing. We see it in a lot of the old Frankenstein and Wolfman and Dracula movies and stuff like that. People grew up with these names, and then they want to, and then later on, and it's outside of the horror genre as well, but that's kind of my thing. So I always default to that. But then, again, with these, with the old slasher movies, we see it, people making new movies out of these old titles, and a lot of times they don't work. But I do think a lot of them still come from legitimate places of wanting to honor the title and just people going like, I want to pay homage to it by making it in my vision. Just a lot of times, unfortunately, that doesn't work well because it's kind of like because it's coming from kind of a fetishization of it. If you know what I mean by that, like I don't necessarily mean in a sexual way, but like, I'm going to take the things that I liked about this and try to make those things super big and super bright, but you kind of lose the substance there,
Good point.
Usually when you don't understand how these things worked to become something that you liked, so when you try to recreate, it doesn't work because you just haven't grasped the way it worked in the original, perhaps.
Well, this is why a lot of people talk about the idea of things being, rewritten and recreated now by people who are basically doing it as fan fiction, and that has been brought up. And there's a bit of truth to that. It's like you were saying, Pitt, these people who are, they fetishize these particular elements of it, but it's because it's basically their fan fiction. And, I mean, fan fiction has unfairly got a bad rap, but the thing about fan fiction is traditionally it's a space where you can do your own thing. You're free to do your own thing because you can't use it as a commercial property. This is something you do for fun. So you insert yourself into there, you make your favorite character a Mary Sue, or you insert your own character in there and you make them a Mary Sue, because that's what you do. You are invested in the story and you want to, do your own little fun thing about it and increase and amplify and inflate all the parts that you liked about it, and that's what you do in fan fiction. So yeah, that's why you do it, because you can't sell it and you can only use it but for that thing. But now these sort of writers are, I don't know, actually able to work on the things that they loved, and they're fucking it up because
they're allowed to make the official continuation or reboot or whatever.
Which is what you don't do. You don't write it as a fan. That's wrong.
You made an excellent point there, and as a writer, I have also written fan fiction, and I remember that the reason that I even bothered writing the fan fiction was because there were so many self-inserts in the original works characters, so they were all bent out of shape and stuff, and I wanted to try and write something that could be faithful to the characters and still be fan fiction, like my own take on certain things, which I managed, and I did, and I even got an award for that. But the thing is, thank you. The thing is that what they are doing lately, and especially in the Shira thing, I can report that because the showrunner herself actually confessed to it, let's say, is that they don't bother going back to study the characters, study the character designs. And I don't mean the way the characters look, which is also very important, but the personalities and why they were what they were, how they became what they became, and you know, the whole interrelation of the world and the characters in it. And they don't take the time to study it and understand it so that they can do their own thing in that particular world, which can absolutely be done. So they just superimpose, they project the very superficial shell of these IPs on their own impression and concept and things that they would like to do. And then they are surprised when the fans don't like it because it's not the work that they are used to and they expect to have. So definitely, I just extrapolated a lot on what you said. So.
Well, yeah, it's you like things as a fan and other people like things in a different way, and yeah, it doesn't match up because it's a very personal experience. Yeah, so that's a bit of a hole to fall into. Well, I think this has been a really interesting Quackcast, and we've sort of taken things in a lot of different, really wildly different directions. So this is pretty cool. Thank you guys for being part of Quackcast number 493.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Go on.
Thank you for being a friend. That's what we need, a reboot of Welcome Back, Cotter. That'll be awesome.
No,
Those
you weren't
Golden
even
Girls you were
singing the right
singing,
song.
Yeah, you're right. See, I'm already changing. I'm rebooting it in my own way.
For 2020 Hollywood. There.
Exactly. Already messing it up. Okay. It's welcome back.
Hey Oz, yeah, we tease you a lot, because we got you on the spot.
All right. Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.